Hey, folks, it's Tommy Z back again with another conversation with an industry insider. Today, we're going to chat with Asia Ivanovic, and I pronounce her name the way it should be pronounced because I have the unfair advantage of being Polish. Most of you will not pronounce it that way, unfortunately, but you should try as much as possible to say Asia Ivanovic. So, Asha, you're a composer, music producer, artist, songwriter, singer, trying to make your way in this world at this difficult time, pay your bills with this thing called music. How is it going?
According to my therapist, it's great.
Is that the first sort of takeaway from this is like, get a therapist if you want to stay sane during these times?
I think everybody should have one, but no, I always am like my own worst critic, and I always think like, oh, but I could be more successful. And she's just like, you're doing great. I don't know what you're talking about. You're doing great.
Fire your therapist. Tell her that her standards are too low.
No, I think it's just hard to have a outside perspective because for me, it's been a very slow, gradual shift into finally being like confident that I'm like a composer, that I'm like a commercially successful composer, because it does feel like it's taken my entire life to get here. But on the outside perspective, everyone's like, you just got your music in this commercial and this commercial and you're doing this. It's like, yeah, I get it. Yeah, that's true. So sometimes it's hard.
Did you go to music school?
I didn't go to a music specific school. Like I didn't even get into Berklee, which was like super heartbreaking for me. But then I went to Northeastern, which is also in Boston. And I actually think that it was a better education personally for what I wanted. So no regrets there. It was this weird, it was like a, what was it called? Music and composition and technology was what they called it. So we learned how to write like everything. Like you learned how to do like classical composition, but even then you go to like what is, neoclassical and then concert music now, which is a lot of like weird acousmatic sound design kind of music that's just like speakers in a room. So I've done like everything in between that. And I don't think I would have done that at Berklee. So I'm happy where I ended up.
So you're glad. And what was your path out of school when you finished?
I thought I was going to do like classical music. I thought I was just going to do stuff for stage, like string quartets, ballets or something. And then I was like, I'm not going to make money doing that. So I knew before I graduated school that I was moving to New York. I was like, that's what I'm going to do that immediately. But while I was in school, I did a sound design internship for like video games. So I was like, I really love video games. I got into music because of video game music. So I was like, I definitely want to do more video game stuff. So I got this internship at Sony PlayStation right out of college and did that for 3 months and that's when I had to go to San Francisco for that. And I was like, all right, I'm going to move to New York for a while and then I'm going to move to California. Like eventually.
So when did you decide in your mind that you're going to commit to a life as a musician? Like, because it seems you're very conscious, like right out of school, that you're not going to make this a hobby. This is going to be your career path. When did that happen?
When I was 15.
Your specific moment, or?
I don't remember a specific moment, but I do remember I started piano and when I was pretty young, and then I did like guitar, and then I was like involved in every musical aspect that I had opportunities to do in high school. I was like in marching band, concert band, the school play band. Like I did every band you could do in school, like that my school offered. And then at some point, I think I was dating somebody and he was auditioning for Berklee, and I was like, if he is doing it, like I love music. I'm going to do this. I'm talented, or I'm I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I was more like, I'm committed, you know, like I always knew I wanted to do music for some kind of media. Like not as I do love playing on stage and doing all that, but I was like, I love video game music. I was really into anime music. Like I just wanted to do music for film, TV, video games, whatever, what have you. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew when I was 15.
Okay. So you get out of school, and how do you land an internship in San Francisco at Sony PlayStation?
I applied.
What was
honestly,
the application process? Because like, why did they select you and not somebody else?
I don't know. That was one of the craziest things, because a lot of the opportunities I've had in life, I didn't get because of nepotism, which is what they tell you about in like when you study music. They're like, you need to know people, you need to like use all those people that you know and like ask them for opportunities. And that has never really happened to me. It's always been just like I applied for something and I was selected or something, like out of nowhere. Like that's how I got the job at Massive. I didn't know anyone at Massive. Like I just applied and they were like, yeah, okay, come in. But Sony, I don't know. I remember I applied online and I was just like, I'm gonna try this. And then, you know, I think they might have asked for some music, you know, to listen to. And then I had an interview, and I think I'm just also a very good interviewee. Like I'm very good at just like having a conversation rather than making it feel like it's an interview.
What they want to know.
Yeah. And I'm also very good at asking questions. Like, I'm like, tell me about how your job is. Like, why do you love it here? And like, your specific, how did you get here? Like, I don't know. I don't know.
Because this is like, I think by questions, you actually show people that
you're interested.
Yeah. And like the better questions you ask, the more intelligence you show, actually, you know?
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to sound smart. It's like, if people ask me some smart questions, I already know, like, wow, okay, this is someone on the level, right?
Right.
Yeah. So there was no like special thing that you had to present to get into Sony PlayStation. Okay. Because I'm trying to find, like, why I'm asking is like for people listening to.
How did I get there?
Yeah. To like try to uncover some of the things that work, that are effective in like getting you industry places.
I think for me, it's been perseverance. It's been like just being down to earth, cool. Like, don't make it weird. Like,
by that you mean don't take it personally. Like, don't get flustered.
Yeah. Like, be confident. Obviously, confidence is always important. But also just be passionate. Like, I think they like could tell that I was someone who was like interested in video games. Because I mean, it was specific for that. Like, I have been a huge video gamer since I was born, and I was like straight up like, I love these games, and you know, like I would have specific, like I just knew what I was talking about. I was confident about it.
What games sort of changed made you fall in love with music?
Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy? Okay. I don't know much about games, but is that like, what kind of a game is that?
It's a RPG, a role-playing game. Mm-hmm. I was really into the Japanese video games like that. I mean, I grew up playing like Mario and stuff, but those games were like, you know, very cinematic. So they had just like cool music, even though back in the day it was all like 8-bit and weird. Like, you know, those themes were still very recognizable. And like the composer for those games still tours with like his crazy rock orchestral band doing all these like themes, like, and they're classic. Like I learned a lot of them on piano, like, cause they were just beautiful themes. Yeah. So, I think I might've talked about that in my interview, I'm sure. Cause you know, it was a Japanese company.
Right. Yeah.
That was the company. Like cause I'm not really an Xboxer. I like have a Nintendo Wii and stuff, but PlayStation has always been like my favorite system, and it's the most successful. So I was like, I definitely want to work for Sony, like specifically. And they have a music department, and all the people there were super awesome people and very talented at what they do. And I got to learn some cool stuff.
So then how did you discover the world of brands? Were you aware of it when you discovered it?
No.
Did you realize it's an opportunity, or did you just sort of fall into it? Like
I fell into it completely by accident. I feel like that happens to everyone though. I don't know anyone specifically who was like, I just want to make ad music. I'm like, I think I've met one person in my entire life who just loves making ad music. And I was like, are you okay?
Can you tell me who that is? Do I know this person?
Oh, I forget his name. I met him at like a party like 2 years ago when I was going freelance. And he was like, you're going to be fine. Like, you don't need to work in-house. You could do this on your own. I was like, oh, okay. It was just
How did you fall into it?
So similar to the Sony idea is I was graduating and I was like, I need to find a job. Like, how do I find a job in, like, writing music? Like, how do you do that full time? Like, is that even possible? So I just started like looking into production houses, and I remember I found Massive like very early on, and I emailed them, and Keith was like, come in sometime. And then I went to New York for an interview for something else, and I was like, I'm in town, and he like didn't respond, and I was like, all right, I guess they don't like me. And then like,
let me back up a bit. So Keith is the head of Massive Music in New York, because Massive has different offices, and we've actually a few different people from Massive and Massive. Actually, that's funny because you're Massive too. I'm Massive. Like, it's almost like a clan where we once belonged and now we're on our own. But many
a few of my LA friends are now also Massive, Patrick and Tim, and
right, exactly, yeah. So, but what I want to pinpoint at is like that first email to Keith, because that's what people want to know. Like, how did you email him so that he replies? Because we get a lot of emails. Like,
I used to be the person to get those emails because everyone else was tired of looking at them.
We'll talk about that.
I can tell you exactly what I look for in an email.
We'll definitely get to that, but just tell me what you did to get his response.
I think I was just very passionate. I was just like, hey, I found your company. I really love the work that you're doing. Like, how can I be involved? I'm a student, but I'm looking for work soon. Like, I might have even been asking for advice. Like, what do you think my next steps are? Or something like that. Like, I feel like I could probably find that. Well, maybe not. It was probably on my school email or something. It's probably gone to some server now, but I definitely was like, for some reason I singled on Massive. Like, I saw a lot of other companies, but Massive seemed the coolest at the time. I was like, I want to work with you guys specifically. And I think I showed that in the email somehow. And he got back to me and but I also was like, probably because I was young, I was a student, it was probably like, yeah, if you're talented, like, I'll at least take a look or meet you, and see if there's potential down the road. Cause it was probably like 6 or something months before I was even graduating from college. So it wasn't like I was like ready to jump into a job. And it wasn't until I moved to New York and then like 2 years went by because I just assumed like, oh, they're not interested because I'm stupid and I didn't follow up.
What happened is like he replied to you and then you got all excited and then you said, hey, I'm in New York.
Yeah.
And then you didn't hear back.
And I heard nothing. And not realizing that sometimes people are just freaking busy and they're just not like looking at your email, like it's not a personal thing at all. It was just, and then when I emailed him 2 years later, he was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I never got back to you. Please come in immediately.
You waited 2 years. So why didn't you follow up at that point? Were you scared that no reply means that, oh, they're definitely not interested, I don't want to bother them?
I'm also maybe at a disadvantage because I'm a woman and and it's sad, but it's true. I feel like when you're a woman, you're kind of a little less aggressive, or at least I used to be like, like I don't want to follow up all the time and be annoying, but now I realize like sometimes, you just gotta be really annoying. Maybe not annoying, but a little bit more like persistent and a little more like in people's faces. And I think I emailed a bunch of other companies and like I had just moved to New York and I was like dealing with that. And then I got like I did have an internship when I first moved to New York. So I kind of was hoping that would pan out into a full-time job, so like, and then when it didn't, I got this like other crappy job as like a secretary at some company. And I was just like working on music and kind of just like doing my own thing. And then I think I think he connected with me on LinkedIn. Like, I think he saw me on LinkedIn and was like, oh, I'll connect with her there. And then I was like, I'm going to try again, you know, like he reached out to me. So I immediately was like, hello, it's me again. And he was like, yeah, I'm so sorry, you know, and then I went in and started talking to them. And over like the span of like 6 months, we had a few meetings, and then finally I got a job there.
What was your role when you finally got hired?
I was a production coordinator. So I was doing all the like bouncing of music to picture and like sending things to clients. And then eventually they were like, we do want you to write on everything that comes in if you have time. And so I kind of became an in-house composer.
How did they know that? Did you sort of make it known that you want to?
Oh no. I was like, I'm a composer. That's what I do. But I know how music industry works. And I know you have to sometimes be the crappy intern at the bottom to like get what you want. Yeah. So I was like, I don't care. You're paying me for a full-time job, and I can have the opportunity to write music for a living. So I will take it. Nowadays I've had a few like job offers, but they're all like producer roles. And I'm just not interested because I know that where I will be bored. I know I can be a good producer. I've been doing it a long time, but I'm like, I don't want to just be dealing with clients all the time. Like, I just want to be writing music. It just doesn't make sense to like take me away from the thing that I love doing most. Like,
right. Okay. So let's talk about the thing that you mentioned you were taking care of that I know people want to hear, which is like musicians, composers are emailing music production companies trying to break in. Mm-hmm. And it almost seems like it's a really uphill battle because there's like a lot less music production houses, though there's a lot more than people think.
There's a lot more, and there's new ones popping up all the time.
But like once you get in the business, you might feel at your low point that it's like, oh my God, there's like a zillion musicians and there's like 1,000 music production companies.
Yeah.
Like, how do I ever have a chance? But like, first off, I want to say that if you make remarkable music and you're creating magic, you're making magic come out of the speakers, you will always find your place. Like, there's no doubt about it. So that's the first thing I want to say.
But if you don't package it right, you're going to have a harder time.
Okay, so tell us about that. You mentioned that people gave you the job of going through the emails that musicians were sending to Massive.
Yes.
And
all they were just like, we don't have time.
So all the mistakes, all the emails that work.
Yes.
Tell us the art and science of what works, what doesn't.
This is what I've told a lot of younger people that have asked me for advice on this. Okay. Right off the bat, I don't like long emails. I don't want like paragraphs of who you are, what you do. I don't care. I'll tell you.
What's amazing is like, this is word for word what I teach. And we haven't consulted on this before. Yes. So I'm hearing from you the first time. So you can see that these are universal lessons, folks.
Yes. Keep it short. People do not have time and they don't want your life story. I'm sorry. They just don't. They want to hear your music. And like, they want it to be packaged nicely, neatly, in a way that is easy to understand and like move on. Like, if I opened one of those emails, I'd be like, where's the link? Where's the link to your music? If it's way at the bottom, like I have to scroll all the way down there. I don't want to do that work. Like
So Asha, I have a question for you. I'm really passionate about my music, as most musicians are. I'm just so excited that I discovered this world of music and brands. And I have like 25 SoundCloud links that I would like to share because I can't decide which one is. They're all great. Will you the 25? What?
No. Give me your top 5 or something. So I'll tell you exactly what I do now. When I email music houses, this is what pretty much the standard like email that I'll send. Maybe I'll even let me see what the last one I sent was.
No, this is gold.
Because so when I was getting all these, I would get so many of these, and I would just, because I also knew within 10 seconds of hearing one audio clip if someone was worth reaching back out to or not.
Exactly.
Like, it's very quick. Like, if your first 10 seconds are not like your best work, then you're probably going to lose the job or the opportunity or whatever it is.
And folks, this is what we teach. I say 5 seconds. I mean, because it's like, I remember when I was in Amsterdam and Chris Koss and I don't know if you ever met Chris, but he was head of production back then. One of my best friends. When we received a link from a composer and like we really resonated with something, the way we listened was we literally listened to like split seconds, like bit.
Yeah.
Bit. Just fast forward, bit. Yep. Like, you know instantly.
Yes.
It's like an instinct thing, you know?
Yeah. And then maybe if I'm unsure, I might listen to a few more.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
But
so
like,
short, don't tell us about playing flute at the age of 3.
Yeah. I don't care.
Don't care. Don't send me 15 SoundCloud links.
Nope.
No time. Scared even. When you see that email, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Because those people sometimes are also the people that will call and be like, did you read my email? And you're like, calm down. Also, don't call. I know, actually, I met someone recently, another freelance composer, who's like, the only way I've ever gotten work is by calling people directly. And I'm like, I would hate that. That happened to me all the time. And I was like, I don't have time to talk to you right now. And I just send me an email, please, of your link. I don't talk like on the phone. Like, just send me an email so I can like see it and remember it. Like, I'm also a visual person. So I'm like, if I see your name in an email, I'll remember you more. So this is basically what I do. I say something like, hello, blank, whoever you are. I'm reaching out to see if your music house is, I'll put their name in, looking for any freelance composers at the moment. I don't even say my name until the second sentence. I say my name is Asha. I'm a Los Angeles-based freelance composer. I've checked out your work. We'll say something nice about their stuff, like something specific, like I loved this spot. I love your music here. I'd love to know how to get involved. If they're in LA, I'll ask if you want to meet for coffee. Very basic. And then I'm like, here's a link to my reel. Boom. And then it's a Vimeo link. I have everything separate. It's not like one giant YouTube link. And people have said that they actually like that because they can see like, oh, she did an Adidas commercial here. She did this commercial here. Like, and they can look at them individually, and it's private. Because like some of the stuff I can't like show on my public website. But I also have a link to my website, like at the very bottom of my email. So whatever. And then I'm like, I look forward to meeting from you. And that's it. It's super short.
Super simple. Yeah. It's super
short, super simple. It's just like, boom,
but
boom, boom.
There's a few things in there that are subtle, but effective. And like, we actually go through like an anatomy of a successful email, believe it or not. But like some things that I did unconsciously, when you start to think about it, they're very effective. So for instance, mentioning that you're from Los Angeles, it may seem like nothing, but it actually puts you in a certain context and already gives people a certain flavor.
Yes.
So if you happen to be from like a major city like Amsterdam or New York City or Nashville, as a region that is musical, or LA as a place where music and film collide.
Yeah.
Or a small village in Iceland. Those are all fucking cool things.
It's very cool, yeah.
Right? And they give you like immediately a flavor of like, okay, so this is like, I can situate them in this context.
When I was living in Brooklyn, I would always put Brooklyn-based composer because people are like, oh, Brooklyn, so cool, or whatever it is. But yeah, it's just like to know what time zone you're in, because I've reached out to people from all over the world and I want them to know, like, if you're going to work with me, I'm in this time zone, and I still would love to work with you because I've worked with people, in Europe, and sometimes it can be a little crazy, but you can make it work. So
very good point. And to folks who live in what you might consider a boring place or whatever, just remember that this is just like a subtle thing. It's not what's going to determine your destiny. Yeah. Like, you could live in a place, I don't know. Ultimately, what will speak for you is your work. It's
your work, which should be good. Like, people should know if you're worth talking to within 10 seconds.
Yeah. So you send people in your email to your website.
My website is just like a link at the bottom, but I don't send them there. I send them to my reel.
Okay,
reel.
You have a like online reel, and that's where all your so basically like your website is more like your artist site. Is that true?
Yeah,
Okay. And then
yeah, it's kind of like in between. And then my Vimeo reel is just my ad work.
Okay.
It's just, and then I also have like some films and short films I've worked on, but it's like, for this, I don't need that stuff. Like that's if I'm looking for other film work, I'll be like, this is for my film reel or whatever. But this one is specific, just ads. This is like, I'm talking to people that are just commercial production houses.
Now tell me, what is the success rate that you get as far as replies? Like how many emails do you send? And on average at this point, how many replies do you expect?
I haven't spent that much time actually emailing people in a while. Like I think I did it right now. It's just probably a terrible time to reach out to people. It's like,
who knows?
Maybe not. I'd say it's probably like, I don't know. It depends when you're emailing to. Like,
is it like 30%, 40?
It's probably higher than that. It might be like 50, but it's also like sometimes people will email me way later and be like, I meant to reach back out to you. And then stuff happened. And then I also might reach out again if it's like a bigger house that I'm like, I know people that work with you and like, I think we could work together. So I will like reach back out.
And there's also been follow-up. Like,
yeah,
you will actually go a step further and go, hey, so I know people might have a mutual friend, like.
Sure. Or like, hey, here's my updated reel. I also have an email tracker on my friend who works in sales was like, you should get an email tracker so you know when people open your email. So sometimes I see them open it and they might not respond. And I'm like, well, at least I know they looked at it, like,
yeah.
It's up to them if they want to respond. But I've had people reach out like months later and be like, I'm so sorry. I did not respond to this, but I meant to. And then they might like throw me a job. Or I've had some houses that I've talked to on a number of occasions, sign their agreement, everything. And they've never reached out to me to the project. So it's like, even when you get your foot in the door, it might not necessarily mean you'll get the jobs. Like,
yeah.
But
the timing, you can tell that sometimes it's just timing.
Sometimes I happen to reach out to a house and they're like, we have a project that you are perfect for. And then they get me a job. So
yeah. So now talk to me about like your day in a life as a songwriter, music composer, specifically for brands, specifically working with music production companies. Tell me what that looks like on average, like what your day looks like.
It depends how many jobs I have coming through, but I mean, on average, I'd say I have like a few jobs a week, and sometimes they're due like the next day, and then sometimes they're due like in 3 or 4 days. But I'm also like pretty good at time management, so I know like, okay, I'm going to work on this one now, and then this one maybe a little bit later or whatever. I get a lot of library searches. A lot of that has turned into library searches.
So by library searches, you mean a music production company will reach out to you and say, hey, we don't have time or the proper budget to start something from scratch. Can you look in your existing archives? So you get a chance to mine your existing compositions. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Which is also a very important note for like new composers. Have a library. Like my friend Pat, who just left Massive, like after we leave, they keep a lot of our music because it's like a part of their brand now. And, the hardest part was like, I have to start an entire library from scratch. So I immediately was just like making tracks and just having stuff lying around that I knew that people might ask for. Like,
yeah.
Like if right now it's like Billie Eilish is the thing. I had 1 week where I had 2 or 3 different jobs that were like, can you redo a Billie Eilish bad guy sound without doing that sound? Because that's copyright infringement. Yeah. So now I didn't win those projects, but now I have like 3 Billie Eilish tracks, so it's worth looking at.
Even a good tip for like people who are real newbies. So you might be like proficient at making music, but you just discovered this world of making music for brands. Like it's a good idea to just like
watch commercials,
download,
see what's there. Yeah.
Create a similar track. So if it's like Billie Eilish and it's your superpower, like it's up your musical alley,
sure,
just keep banging those out because even they're going to be useful, like as you mentioned, as a library track potentially.
Yeah. And also be ready to, if people ask for revisions, if people want to change a few things, have those sessions on hand. Don't just throw the session out. Yeah. Keep backups and just make sure like, it's not like a personal thing. If someone's like, can you just take out that hi-hat and put in something else? Like, it's just the name of the game. Sometimes the client just wants something really specific and you have to just be like, yeah, I'll do it. No problem. Like that's the biggest problem with ad music, is that it's so fast sometimes those creatives are waiting for changes to be done within like a day, if not less. And you're like, if you want to succeed, you have to be willing to just be like, cool, yeah, I'll make that change. No problem. Boom, done. And just send it off. Like, you can't take it personally.
It's got a lot to do with your approach and attitude. Like, generally, your mindset is huge, because you might experience silence when you're emailing people.
Yes.
You might experience terrible speed and lack of compassion for your music, even though you think you submitted something amazing during the process, where they're like, no, just remove the thing you like most.
That happens to me all the time, where I'm like, the thing that made this track so interesting, they're like, can we remove that? It's just like distracting. And I'm like,
you know what? Whatever, you're paying me.
Exactly. Yeah, this is, at the end of the day, this is a client. It's like the same as if you were like a plumber. You're like, my, thing is busted. I got to fix it. Like, you just have to just do it or whatever, like, if this is a client and they're paying for a specific sound, and if you're the one who can achieve that sound, you have to just be like, okay.
Yeah. So basically you're putting food on the table from demo fees, which I believe are like from 250 to maybe more if you're lucky.
Maybe sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I think the most I've gotten for like one demo fee is maybe like 500 for like a remix thing.
Yeah.
But that's like being really generous. Yeah. Usually it's like 250 to 300. That's normal. And then, it's like a lot of my stuff has shifted to licenses. Like, I've made more from licensing this year, I think, than like the actual demo fees, which is great. No problems there. There's a lot of them.
Your own tracks as an artist, which is amazing. Like, I get people asking me every day, hey, can you be an artist and still like do this brands thing, or does the brands thing require full-time commitment? And I'm like, no, if you're an artist who's creating like the kind of music that resonates in the world of commercials, you got a beautiful situation, because you have to be creatively free.
Yeah, I make some weird stuff sometimes, and like this one I was talking about, I just got this GoDaddy spot. It was a license, and it was totally kind of unexpected. It's a track that I've loved for a long time. I made it maybe like 2 years ago, and I've always been like, why hasn't that track been licensed for anything? And then GoDaddy was like, we love this track, and it's got like over 45 million views on YouTube, which I'm like, why are people watching ads on YouTube? And I see all the comments and people are like, what is this track? And now I'm releasing this track on Spotify. Like, I just uploaded it yesterday for streaming, because people keep being like, this track doesn't exist. What is this? Who's this Asha person? And I'm like, crap, I like just didn't even realize that this was happening. So now I'm like,
so is this online now? Like, can people see
it? I just put it up on YouTube, like right before we started talking.
Still up?
And then the GoDaddy is still up. It just started airing.
That. So I'll link it after our.
Sure.
So people have reference to it.
It was just so unexpected, because I wrote it kind of for ads, but then like it's became like a track that people really liked and are like asking for, and I was like, well, I gotta give people what they want, and I'll throw it up on Spotify then. Like.
Yeah. So then the big money comes from licensing, and then final fees if you happen to land the track. And final fees are what now? I mean, I'm hearing, because I'm not doing that much work in the US, I'm hearing like they're getting lower.
They're getting low.
Anywhere from like even 1,500 to like $7,000 used to be like the beautiful final.
Yeah. Although I do a lot of mnemonics, and those might be higher because people are not paying out royalties for mnemonics anymore. People used to make so much money from mnemonics, but now because they're like, we don't want to give you people back end, we'll just give you a higher end fee. Yeah. So those might still be like between 10 and 20. I did one project that was like 70, and I was like, I want that. That project ended up like just being completely going bust, but that was nice. I was like, can I get those, please?
Yeah. And then licensing, what are the ranges? You don't have to tell me your specific numbers, but like give me ranges from low to high And
I actually think they might be, my lowest is probably like 500.
$500. Yeah.
But it's like non-exclusive, like an internal thing. I'm like, I don't care. Yeah, just give me $500. Like I can still use this track for other things.
Non-exclusive means that you could still use it. It's not going to be tied to that project.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't own it. Mm-hmm. And internal use means that it's not actually going to air in like big places. It's just going to be maybe within the company or at a trade show, maybe. Who knows?
I will say though, because of social media, like those fees, like it's kind of normal sometimes to be like, this is a Instagram only post, $500. And you're like, I mean, sure, I'll like give you a track. Like I said, it's like non-exclusive. I don't care. And it might only run for like 3 weeks. And you're like, okay, fine. But it's crazy. But then other times I feel like licensing is even maybe a little bit higher than sometimes the final fees for original music, which I'm like, I don't understand that.
Yeah. But that's interesting because then you're not actually putting in any work except for compiling the tracks to send over for consideration.
Yeah. I mean, your work was making it to begin with, you know?
Sure.
Like,
but if it's
sometimes I have
that, then it's fun, right? I mean, it's like
it's fun
from your heart, not because you have to.
Mm-hmm.
So let's quickly sort of sum up the primary lessons for people listening wanting to get into the business.
Be confident.
Be confident. Don't take lack of answer as rejection or something.
Don't take rejection as rejection. Like sometimes
it's amazing.
Like, yeah, but like sometimes like I actually don't win a lot of original compositions very frequently. Like I'm just used to it. It's like, you don't know how many people are throwing that hat in the ring. Like it could be 3 different music houses on one project plus like library tracks plus the original song that some editor threw in the edit and that they like fell in love with, like, you know, that they can't afford it. And then they do end up having money to afford it. It's just like, you're up against God knows how many pieces of music. So it's like, you just can't take it personally. And then if you don't win, you can take those tracks. If it's a company that doesn't hold on to those tracks forever, you can take those tracks and it becomes part of your library and you can sell it somewhere else.
And you're still making your $250.
And you're still making your $250.
So it's always something.
Like I like it because sometimes I make stuff that I would never normally make. Like I've made some weird, wacky stuff, and I'm like, well, I have this in case someone wants it.
Okay, so be confident. What else would you say? Like if you were to, in your good conscience, talk to a good, diligent soul who's got talent. Like, you know, it's one of those folks that we got to recognize. Not these dabbling amateurs who are just
so they already know how to use a DAW and know how to
just good stuff. Folks. What would you say to good folks who, like, you know, you wouldn't mind being in the ad writers group on Facebook, which is like where the place where all of us hang out, though.
Yes.
I'm not really participating there. There is a community which you get to
It's actually a big community, yes.
Yeah, it's a big community which you will get to be a part of when you get into the business. So I'm saying, like, what are you saying from you to that kind of person who belongs in our business? They just don't know it yet. Like, well, what are some of the things you tell them?
Definitely be confident. Don't be afraid of rejection. I'd say you just have to be really, really good at taking feedback. It's like the number one thing. It's like you have to realize at the end of the day that it's what the client is paying for, and you can't get emotionally attached to anything. Like you just have to be like cool to just make a piece of music and be like, this is no longer mine. Here you go. Like I will craft it the way that you want because you are paying for it at the end of the day. And and that's okay. And then sometimes, you know, you will get those spots that you are genuinely happy about, like the Secret Deodorant one that I'm going to show. Like when at first I saw it air and I saw like all the great feedback, I was just like, I'm touched. Like this took a lot of work and it has a good message. And it's like, it's weird sometimes when you're like watching TV and you see like your own piece of music on air and you're like, I made that.
Great. Before we get into the case study, which will be separate for those who are part of the class, you'll see it in all the case studies. But before we go there, I want to ask you, what tools are you using? What's your workshop like?
I'm in Ableton. Okay. I have been for so long now that it's like, I can't go back. I used to use Pro Tools a little bit for like editing and bouncing, and now now that I have the Ableton 10 suite, I don't even need it. I don't need Pro Tools anymore.
So Ableton, what kind of are you using? Mostly VSTs? You have some outboard gear?
I'm using mostly VSTs. I have this is a Norn 2X lead that I bought on Craigslist years ago, and it's actually a funny story. When the guy came to sell it to me, he was like, "I've seen you perform before," and I was like, "What?" I was like, "How?" Yeah, I was like back in Brooklyn. I have like a bunch of MIDI keyboards. I'm a keyboardist at heart, but I also have I have 2 acoustic guitars, like a ukulele, a bass, a electric guitar, a bunch of little like assorted percussion instruments. I used to play percussion.
Now we're actually like listening to your music in the background, and you have this very electronic, ethereal sort of feel. And I don't want to pigeonhole your music, but like is that what you get called for when you get called for commercials, or do some people know, oh, she can play the uke, she can give us like one of those typical happy-go-lucky ukulele tracks?
No, I do not get called for those.
Okay, so you get called for the electronic.
At this point, I actually get called for a lot of like trap, hip hop, singer-songwritery stuff. Definitely like weirdo electronic. I always say I'm a poor man's Trent Reznor, and I want to be pigeonholed as that. And I'm like waiting for the day for someone to be like, we need Trent Reznor, but he's too expensive. Ashi, are you available? That's like, but I'm not quite as dark. Like I mean, I would want to be that dark, but advertising doesn't let me be that dark most of the time. Sure. Unless I'm doing like a Nike or Adidas ad, and then they're like, run free usually. And those are the spots I'm like always like, yes, but I never get those. Like I never win them.
It's tough to get.
Yeah, because you have to be like so cool and like, innovative sometimes. But
so what are
the worst brief?
Yeah.
The worst brief is just like, be cool, be innovative. And you're like,
what does that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the like essential tools that you take with you to an island and still be confident you can?
When I'm okay, so I actually travel. I try to travel a lot because I love traveling. So when I'm doing that, I usually have my laptop. I have literally this tiny little keyboard that I use on my desk. My microphone.
What kind of?
What is this? I'm like terrible at gear, so I apologize. It's a Rode NT1A.
Yeah.
So you will probably know more than I do. And I have like...
No, I don't actually. I'm not really that big of a gear guy. But
I'm not a gear person.
I'm doing this for people who might be interested, like...
Yeah.
Because a lot of people think there's a huge barrier to doing music. It's
I do this with like the most minimal setup you probably have ever seen. I just got new monitors. I had like really crappy monitors. These are KRKs. They're really nice. And then I have a Scarlett Focusrite, which actually keeps crapping out on me. I probably need to get a new interface.
Okay.
But that's what I bring with me when I travel. It's just like my headphones, my interface, my laptop, my mic, because I do get a lot of like female vocal jobs. Like if anything needs female vocals, I usually get called because I know like I just do it. I don't have to hire anyone. And then like my little keyboard. Maybe I'll bring a guitar if I did.
What about inside of the computer? What kind of VSTs are essential for you?
Let me see. Let me open my... Because I use a lot of let's see, how can I escape this? Oh, exit full screen. There we go. I use a lot of Serum.
Yeah.
I've gotten into that one. I just got into Pigments, is kind of a new one that I just started using recently that I like. Because there's a lot of like interesting, you can like throw in samples and make cool instruments out of like
I've heard
audio
of
samples.
Pigments.
It's a cool one. I like it. I use a lot of, I used to use Massive, but I feel like that one's kind of starting to sound a little aged and not as cool, but you can still download a lot of presets that are interesting. So I'll still use it for things here and there. I started using this thing called Arcade, which is, I think it's perfect for people that are in advertising. So I don't know if you have ever used it.
Yeah.
So basically when you open it up, it like gives you all these like sets, like different instruments. So it'll give you like a 2-octave keyboard worth of like samples that you can
Loops.
play around with. And yeah, loops and different like things, and it has like cool effects that you can change. You can also make your own. And so I made like a weird vocal thing of my lyrics and vocals, like little instrument, little sample pack. And they have new sample packs coming up all the time.
Yeah.
I try not to use it like too heavily because it is like, you don't know how many people are using it out there, but I enjoy it. It's an Output product. It's cool. I like Output. They do a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
What else do I use?
What about your mixing? Like, what do you put on your master channel? A lot of people ask me about how to mix and blah, blah, blah. Like, what do you do there? I'm very minimal when it comes to it. Like, I just put a limiter on my.
Yeah. I'm pretty minimal too, but so for individual instruments now, I use Neutron 2, which is a isotope plugin. And that one's cool because it kind of it has a mode where it can like kind of do an auto mix for you, which sometimes works. Sometimes it sounds like crap. And I'm like, no, thank you. I don't want that at all. But it has a lot of instrument specific stuff. It's got sound design stuff. It's got like kind of like a mastering thing. So like if I have drums, I'll throw a Neutron onto like the whole drum bus and they, go through the settings, see which one I like. And if it actually adds anything, if not, I'm like, I don't even need it, whatever. But then I have my own mastering chain that I created in Ableton that I use. And it is like very basic. It's like they had like the original Ableton mastering preset, and I had that, but then I put a what is it, Ozone Light or something. I just got like a new Ozone thing, Ozone Elements. So I have like an EQ, and then I have the Ozone 9 elements that like I might do a few little things, maybe like widen the sound or something, and then I just have the full chain Ableton master at the end.
Right.
Just to like usually stereo enhance or like just to put the limiter on, like I try to not get too crazy. I still feel like I have a lot to learn in music production, although everyone says my mixes sound fine. I'm always like, really? I don't know.
Yeah, but that's a point that a lot of times I have to make to people who are like, I'm not really good at mixing. And it's like,
I had to force myself to become good at mixing.
I'm not an engineer. A lot of people who are making amazing music are not technically skilled in mixing.
I'll say the biggest thing about mixing is it's not even the mastering or the mixing part. It's knowing what instruments fit together and knowing what frequencies those instruments sit in. Like before you even touch the mixing stuff, like sometimes you got to take out that one instrument that it just is sitting in a frequency that is ruining your mix. Sometimes it's just soloing and getting and muting things and being like, oh, my mix sounds fine without this thing in it. And
the
then
key is like what is your track? Well, like where is what is the
arrangement?
Yeah. And then like just weed everything out that isn't, because sometimes you get attached to like this beautiful thing that you've been tweaking for.
But sometimes it doesn't work.
But it just doesn't, it's not even the thing that makes the track. So
I've gotten really a lot better about, I used to be like, no, I made this thing, I have to like make it fit. And now I'm like, just take it out. Like I can figure out some other use for it or do some other track with it, or it doesn't matter. Sometimes it's, you just take that thing out and you're like, oh wow, the mix just all of a sudden just opened up and you can hear everything. And that was it. That's all you had to do.
That's cool. Okay. So, we're gonna transition now to talking about a real project, which is deodorant for women called Secret, which you chose as the project that you wanted to share because of its
scope, magnitude,
and complexity and magnitude. And I guess there's a lot of stories that you'll be able to tell through this project. So let's go there.